My name is Kurt Maypiece, and I'm a member of the Sprucedale Community, the community that you travel through as you take Highway 19, and a council member of St. John's Lutheran Church. The existing highway is dangerous. We need to have Highway 19 twinned. We've had community members seriously injured on the highway. We've had people die on the highway, an average of 2 people a year. It can take 15 minutes to get on the highway at certain times of the day, and it's a critical route into Nisku, where many of us work. From what I can tell, looking at Alberta Transportation's website, it is in the top 3 busiest single-lane highways in Alberta. Alberta Transportation is planning on spending $3 billion, over $3 billion in the next 3 years on capital projects, but Highway 19 is not on it. I think we can all agree that there's an established need for Highway 19 to be twinned. So why the delay? For that, we need to look at the airport's wants. The airport wants to have the third runway that extends over half a mile outside their existing land base. But do they need to impact 3 churches and 3 cemeteries, some of which have been there over 100 years, when they have 3,000 acres of land, currently undeveloped, to work with? The airport wants the third runway because of future growth, but as we've demonstrated with our signboards there at the back, many airports with much more air traffic operate fine with 2 runways. The airport wants to have the runway in this location and won't consider the alternatives because they say it will result in a reduction of capacity. Was it 16% or something in that range for the one alignment? But do they need that additional capacity? Diane mentioned earlier about London Heathrow. It can operate with 2 runways and handle almost 500,000 aircraft movements. Why can't our airport with 1/3 the movements and much smaller planes? This is why we do not and will not support the route that Alberta Transportation continues to push on behalf of the Edmonton International Airport that allows for a runway that will impact our community. You're probably asking why we're so wound up. Can't we just work with the airport? We would love to, but we can't find anyone willing to meet with us who is accountable. The EIA is a corporation formed as a result of the Regional Airports Authorities Act. I'm going to bore you a little bit here, more than usual. They are not an arm of government. They lease the land from the federal government and are a non-profit corporation. What did they pay in 2011 for this lease? It works out to $135 per acre per month. The Airport Authority purpose is, and I'm quoting from Section 21 of the Act, to manage and operate the airports for which it's responsible in a safe, secure, and efficient manner, and to advance economic and community development by means that include promoting and encouraging improved airline and transportation service and an expanded aviation industry for the general benefit of the public in its region. So how does this purpose, set out in the Act, link to their long-term strategic goal of growing non-aeronautical revenue to $100 million by 2020? Parking and even a hotel I can understand, but a golf course, racetracks, a gun club? The EIA is competing with you and I, without the government oversight, on cheap, leased land that we, as taxpayers, own. And because they are a non-profit corporation and have access to airport improvement fees, a tax that we all pay when we fly, there is not even a profit motive to ensure that they don't make mistakes. So when they say that they want to put the new runway in this location, they're not telling you that it will cost them millions of dollars, as they will be knocking down a number of buildings, including the fairly new WestJet hangar, to allow for it. Why not? They have access to an unlimited pot of funds, unlike other businesses. They have no shareholders, but have a board of directors that meet 6 times a year. They are supposed to be setting the strategic direction of the airport and are ultimately accountable for the operations of the airport. They are supposed to be taking into account the perspectives of the communities they are appointed from, but they do not. Because how can they? They meet every couple of months. Is the board even here today? And who is responsible for overseeing this act? Holding the board of directors accountable? Happens to be the Minister of Transportation, Rick McIver. I'm stating this not to bash the airport or anyone else, but rather to reframe the discussion. You've heard, the airport, they say they're a driver of the economy, but they're not. They're a passenger. When the economy takes a downturn, the airport traffic takes a downturn. As the population and the economy grows, so does airport traffic. It is a result of the economy. So to say we have seen growth over the last couple of years, that is natural. That does not make a case for the airport to grow outside its already substantial borders. I'd like to introduce Don DeBlanco, who has a short statement, and I'll come back.
Thank you, Kurt. The reason I'm here is I used to be your neighbor. At least I was, until some 57 years ago, we found an envelope in our mailbox. In it was a foreign letter. Did not have our name on it, but we knew it was meant for us because it had the legal description of our land on it. It was addressed to all concerned. It informed us that the land referred to had been expropriated as of the 6th of September 1956 to accommodate the construction of a new airfield for the city of Edmonton. With this scrap of paper, my father lost his land, which had been his father's before him. He lost his home, he lost his livelihood, and most importantly, he lost his community. And with this, I also lost my own personal future. That was the only document we received until some 3 years later we got notice from the Exchequer Court of Canada requiring us to surrender the lands or, among other things, to be responsible for the costs of this action. In other words, we would be held liable for the costs of expropriating our own land from us. The land in question lies outside the fence of the airport, and along with other parcels of land, both within the airport and outside the fence, have never been used for the purposes of the expropriation in the 57 years that the airport has held them. Now they come to us and demand that this community sacrifice more land. 7,000 acres. That's the largest land mass of any airport in Canada, and is large enough for any projected expansion they might envision. I would say, build on the land you already have, and do not victimize further any more families as we were, or impact upon the historical and sacred sites that lie within your path. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. So how is this corporation delaying the twinning of Highway 19? Unfortunately, we do not have access to the discussions between Alberta Transportation and the EIA. When one of our group put in an access to information request, we got a lot of blank pages, as it was deemed that disclosure was harmful to the business interests of a third party. The airport could have consented to the disclosure, but obviously refused to do so. As far as we know, the first time moving the highway north was discussed was when Reg Milley, and correct me if I'm wrong, met the minister at the Edmonton Indy and told him that the Alberta Transportation will need to move the highway, throwing out years of planning. This forced Alberta Transportation to start over, even though in March 2009, the design along the current alignment was being finalized and land acquisition, like the Moolah's land, had already started. In September 2011, we learned that the highway would not be following the existing path. We learned through the newspaper that the airport was having the highway moved, but was not putting any money in until the runway was actually built. Unfortunately, the details of that agreement aren't public. After the public outcry, we worked with Minister Daniluk to have him see the greed that the airport was demonstrating. I believe Minister Daniluk is here actually, or former Minister Daniluk, so appreciate your time. I can't see you. We also provided our requirements for the highway that were pretty simple. Twin the highway with minimal disruption to the area it goes through. This means access across and to the highway will be similar, and it will not disrupt the churches and cemeteries in the area, either now or in the future with the third runway. 2, that it happen as soon as possible. People are dying. In March 2012, a letter from Minister Daniluk to the airport stated that the twinned highway would follow its current alignment. MLA Rogers, Minister McQueen, and Mayor Whaley supported that decision publicly at that time. But the airport was not finished. The election happened, and even though the decision was made, they managed to get the ear of the new Minister of Transportation, Rick McIver, and we're back to square one. I noticed in the Devon Dispatch this week that MLA Rogers has changed his mind again as well. But both Alberta Transportation and Mr. Rogers have given the reason that we have been convinced. And Mr. Rogers said that he's looking at the bigger picture. Well, Mr. Rogers, my bigger picture includes the culture and history of this area, not just the wants of the airport. I'm hoping the Minister is here today, and it sounds like he will be here later, to defend the reasons for wanting to build a highway that is less safe than a twinned highway on the current alignment, that will cost more to build, that will cost more for those traveling it to drive, that allows for a runway that will destroy much of the historic heart of our community, that has been delayed, not even on the $3 billion, 3-year transportation plan, because he's bowing to the demands of an unelected, irresponsible corporation that is working outside its stated purpose and not looking out for the public's interest. I'll leave you with this. I grew up on a farm, and I'm a manager, and a key skill of both jobs is what I call a fully developed BS detector. The airport is throwing a bunch of stats at you as to why they want the third runway and why this is the only location possible for it, even though the location we're proposing is where they're planning their 4th runway. We haven't found an airport that has the land base of the EIA with so few runways and little aviation traffic. I guess they can do what they want on the land that was taken almost 60 years ago and is now worth $2.55 billion. But if they want to move outside those 7,000 acres, the largest in the country, then they will need to make a strong public case to do so, which at this point they have not. So we're asking, and this is just not one single community member, but a lot of people in this room, certainly put up your hands if you're part of our group or whatever. Yeah. We're asking Alberta Transportation, yet again, another year and a half later, 4 years after the EIA first derailed this project, to get on with it, stop acting as an agent for the EIA Corporation, and put Highway 19 on the 3-year plan, twin it where it is, and call BS on the airport's demands.
Thank you to all our presenters.